Now an interview I've been waiting for a long time. Jack Cafferty of CNN. Jack, welcome to the Young Turks.
Yeah, calm down.
Well, you know, I'm a big fan. But you've got a new book out, Now or Never, Getting Down to the Business of Saving Our American Dream. And it's about what the Obama administration can do, right or wrong. I want to get to that a little bit. But first, if you don't mind, I'd like to start with, go all the way back and start with your career and how you got here in the first place.
Oh, my. How long is your program?
Well, we'll see. We'll see. All right.
I've been at this about 40 years. Like 47, 48 years maybe. I started in 1960 in high school.
Wow. And did you at some point start as a local reporter somewhere in the country?
I started actually spinning records on a radio station in Reno. My first television job was a kids program. The first news job I had was in Kansas City. Well, that's not true. I did the news in Reno. You'll forgive me. It's so long ago. I did the news in Reno at a TV station there for a little while. My first reporting was, I guess in Kansas City probably in the late 60s.
Wow, a children's program. Did you yell at the kids or no?
No. I was. I'm loath to admit this, but I guess it doesn't matter because there's no videotape of this. But I was Ranger Jack. I was a forest ranger, Smokey the Bear's best buddy.
Really? Are you sure there's no video of that? Because I bet I could
find
find
something. Sure. I would have had it all destroyed if there was.
Ranger Jack, I took note of that.
Yeah.
All right. So, and then you went on to New York eventually, where I used to watch you when I lived there.
Yeah, I got to New York in 1977 and did local news at WNBC for 13 or 14 years. I co-anchored a very successful late afternoon news / talk show called Live at 5.
And I remember all that, and excuse me for saying this, but when I was growing up, I used to watch you.
Yeah, that's cute. Just never mind.
So, but then, and then you left New York, and I didn't
leave New York.
What happened next?
You left New York.
Well, that's true.
Yeah.
But what happened between New York and CNN, if anything?
Oh, nothing. I was here the whole time. I left Channel 4. I did a talk show on Channel 5 called Jack Cafferty's Newsline New York. It was a late-night kind of local version of Nightline. I did the 10 o'clock news on Channel 11 for 6 years, and then went to work at CNN about 10 years ago.
Oh, okay.
But I've been in New York the whole time.
All right. And when you got to CNN, when did they switch you over to doing those little commentaries?
Well, it kind of happened accidentally. I did a morning business program on CNN FN, the now defunct financial network. I hope I didn't have anything to do with driving it clear off the map, but I may have. But I used to read emails on the show back when nobody even knew what an email was, and I would pick little things that kind of annoyed me out of the newspaper or out of the newscast from the night before, and I'd go on the air and complain about whatever was chapping my chaps at the moment, and it kind of resonated, I think, with people, and so then when they started American Morning on CNN, Paul Lazar, Anderson Cooper, and I were the first three hosts of that morning show, and I used to do a segment called Here's What I Don't Get, and it was basically the Cafferty Files under a different name, but I would pick some issue that didn't sound kosher to me, and I'd go on and complain about it, and then we'd read viewer responses to it, so that's kind of how it started.
Do you remember the first time you did one of these commentaries basically against the Bush administration?
It's hard to remember exactly when that happened. In the very beginning, I was very supportive of George Bush, as was most of the country. After 9/11, Bush could do no wrong in anybody's eyes, including mine. And I drank the Kool-Aid on, everything, even including the war in Iraq, which turned out to be a huge mistake. But I was believing the same kind of phony, PR and information that was being put out to everybody else in the country about weapons of mass destruction and what an imminent threat this guy was, and he was in bed with Al-Qaeda and yada, yada, yada. So in the beginning, I supported Bush. It wasn't until I figured out he was running a scam on everybody that I said, wait a second here. These guys aren't dealing off the top of the deck.
And Jack Cafferty's written a book about that. It's Getting Ugly Out There. That was his earlier book. And Jack, do you remember if there was a moment where you thought, wait a minute now, doesn't make any sense. Is this guy being straight with us?
Well, I think it was it was one of those things where the fog gradually clears. The dawn comes. You start to hear things that don't make a lot of sense, and you find out that we invaded and took down Baghdad and invaded and knocked over the whole country in about an hour and a half, but we couldn't find the weapons of mass destruction. And then we started learning about the political affiliation of the Ba'ath Party under Saddam Hussein, and the fact that there's no way they would have ever had anything in the world to do with Al-Qaeda because they were members of different tribes, and on and on. The thing just started to not make a lot of sense.
And then you start doing commentaries hot and heavy against the Bush administration, and it catches on fire to some degree. Did CNN have a reaction to that? Did anybody come talk to you and say, hey, wait a minute, Jack, you might want to ease up?
No, they have never. There was one time, and I went on the air and called Donald Rumsfeld a war criminal. And that was the only time in the 9 years or whatever it is that I've been doing this stuff that anybody said anything to me. And that got them a little stirred up, and they came and said, look, you can't call the guy a war criminal. So I went on the air and I said that was over the line. I shouldn't call him a war criminal. I will go to my grave thinking Donald Rumsfeld was a war criminal. But I took it back at the behest of my bosses. But that's the only time. They have given me unbelievable amount of freedom to say pretty much whatever I want.
That's really interesting. I wonder why they let you do that, but none of their hosts do anything similar.
Oh, that's not true. Lou Dobbs has a lot of opinion on his show.
That's true. That's true.
Anderson occasionally will get into that area, and all of the, most all of the shows now on CNN have these, these the talking heads, these commentators that, best political team on tell, whatever, and so there is a pretty good smattering of opinion, but I kind of predate all that stuff on CNN, and why they let me do it, I couldn't tell you.
So you're right. Lou Dobbs does have opinion, but the other shows are very, well, I would honestly call them vanilla. Okay, now you work at CNN, so you might disagree with that, but I think CNN would say they're down the middle, right? Have they ever talked to you about doing a show, since your segments are obviously popular, doing a show where you actually let them have it?
We've had some discussions. It's never worked out to the satisfaction of both sides, and quite frankly, that window is closed now. I think I'm getting a little long in the tooth, and doing a daily show is a lot of work, and it takes a lot of energy, and I've kind of settled into doing what I'm doing, and I sort of enjoy it, and I'm pretty content just to do that now until such time as I decide I might want to retire.
All right, that's interesting. We're talking to Jack Cafferty of CNN, and his new book is Now or Never, Getting Down to the Business of Saving Our American Dream. We're going to put that up in the Young Turks Library, where you can check it out for yourself.
Well, thank you.
Oh, of course. It's at theyoungturks.com. We'll also put it up, It's Getting Ugly Out there as well, when he took on the Bush administration. So let's talk about the new book.
Okay.
What do you see as Barack Obama primarily doing wrong? Let's start there.
Oh, I'm not sure that I'm capable of knowing at this point what he might be doing wrong. I think except for likening his bowling game to the Special Olympics, which was arguably one of the stupidest things he's probably ever said in his entire adult life. I don't think we're going to know for a little while whether some of this stuff is right or wrong. I think, we've got to give it some time. The bailout of these big Wall Street firms and companies like AIG, I think it was probably necessary, and I think we'll probably never know how dangerous that whole thing was. My guess is we were at the edge of the cliff, and if they hadn't started pouring money into these guys, the entire world financial system could have come crashing down. But that's a guess. But I think he's doing a lot of things right. I don't have any major beefs with Obama at this point.
How about this? What people are saying might be a hypocrisy of firing the CEO of GM, but almost none of the bankers have been fired, and they created a much bigger mess.
Well, there's a difference in the size of the financial institutions. I mean, AIG is a global company that they claim, if it had gone down, could have dragged the whole economy over the cliff with it. General Motors is a poorly managed automobile company that's been operating with a bad business model for years. They've been hostage to these UAW contracts. They're not building cars that Americans want to buy anymore. Their sales are going down, down, down. And I don't think you can compare the two. I mean, the banks and the big financial firms are vital to the survival of this capitalistic economy that we have. General Motors is a car company, and if they go bankrupt, they go bankrupt, just like American Motors or Nash or Studebaker or, pick one you like down through the years. Whatever happened to Montgomery Ward's. I don't think it's the same deal. I think he's probably right to say, we gave you a chance to come up with a business plan that made some sense. You haven't done it. We're not going to just keep pouring money into your failed enterprise.
Well, I agree and disagree, because I think that it's certainly a different ballgame. There's no question about that. And comes a time in a normal business like GM where you say, well, either it's going to work or it's not going to work. I don't agree that the main issue is the UAW. I think,
that's one of the issues. I don't know if it's the main issue, but it's one of the issues.
I think it's one of the smaller issues, in my opinion.
Their legacy costs are something like $5,000 per car.
Yeah, the legacy costs are enormous, but that's
UAW.
Yeah, it is and it isn't, though. I mean, it's everybody has a pension wherever they work, so to pretend that it's, the UAW that created the idea of pensions.
Well, everybody doesn't have a pension wherever they work anymore. Those pensions are becoming a rarer and rarer animal. I just think, in terms of what it costs Detroit to build an automobile versus what it costs Hyundai. I was just looking at a thing right before you called here. Hyundai sales were up like 40%, and General Motors sales are down 35%. Well, why is that?
Well, look, I think there is an answer for that, because McDonald's sales are up, and Kentucky Fried Chicken and Target and Walmart
are up.
Okay, that's
fair.
So the lower priced products do
better. That's fair.
Now, on one last thing about the bankers, though, because yes, you're right. If there's a possibly imminent financial collapse if we don't put in some sort of money, etc. But it seems to me the much bigger crime is what the banks did, what AIG did. They gambled with money they didn't have.
No question.
And now they're asking us to pay the bills, and then Geithner funnels the money to Goldman Sachs. They get paid first. They get 100 cents on the dollar, and that to me is a tremendous problem as far as the taxpayer money is concerned.
Well, somebody described it as the age-old Wall Street, Main Street smackdown, and you're absolutely right. And on the surface, this stuff smells, but the fact of the matter is, we, the government of this country, didn't do a very good job of regulating or providing oversight to these financial institutions. They did what they were allowed to do. Were they greedy and selfish and all of those things? You bet. Is what they did legal? Yeah, unfortunately it is. And they got these toxic assets on the books now, these mortgage-backed securities that nobody can figure out how much they're worth. And as a result, credit's dried up in the country, and we're in a position of having to, prime the pump with taxpayer money. If you could go back, would you do it differently? Of course. But we're here now, and the question is, how do we get out of this, and where do we go from here? And I hope the Obama guys are going to get this right.
What's funny is that you sound a little bit more hopeful about the Obama guys than I am. But the book is called Now or Never, Getting Out of the Business of Saving Our American Dream. So are you hopeful that Obama has it figured out on how we save the American dream, and how do you think that is?
Well, that's a pretty big question, and I don't know, when you say how do we save the American dream, I think we're in a position where we don't have much choice but to put our faith in the ideas of the Obama administration, because those are the guys who won the election. So now they're running the government, so now they can do pretty much what they want to do up to a certain point. So I think, whether you agree with it or not, you better root for it, because if he's wrong and if they can't fix this, then your kids and my kids and everybody who's listening to this program's kids are going to have to enjoy a standard of living that we haven't seen in this country in a very, very long time. The value of the dollar has gone down. The national debt is at $11 trillion and headed right for the moon. We have $50 trillion in unfunded liabilities for Medicare and Social Security. If these guys can't get a handle on some of this stuff, then we're headed into the drain here.
Jack, I want to ask you, do you ever talk about your politics? Is that
No.
No, you don't. So you won't say whether you're a Republican or a Democrat before Bush came in, or you are now or not, right?
That's correct.
Okay. So, all right, let me ask it in a different way then.
You'll get the same answer, but go ahead.
What did you think of Ronald Reagan?
No, I think Reagan Reagan was to America when he came along what Obama is to America now. That is to say, he followed a hugely unpopular and unsuccessful president. That would be Carter. And he came along with this positive view of, he cheerleaded the country. He had that charisma and that ability to draw people to him. And he did some pretty remarkable things. I mean, the Iron Curtain came down in large part because of Ronald Reagan. There were some other things that happened in large part because of Ronald Reagan. I think, he was what the doctor ordered for the country at the time. Can you look back and say, oh, there was Iran-Contra, there was this? Of course. But you can do that with any of these people. I mean, hindsight's always 20/20. But I think, given the times and the mood of the country and the situation we were in with the crappy economy and all the rest of it that was the legacy of the Carter years, that, he came along and provided a life raft in some pretty stormy water.
Well, do you think George W. Bush was the worst president of your lifetime?
Yes.
And
Did you want a short answer? Yes.
And, of all the different things he did wrong, in your opinion, what was particularly galling to you? What stood out above?
Well, there were a number of things, but the thing that irritated me most was he had no intellectual curiosity. He had no appetite for, finding out, how it might be possible to do things different. He abrogated the president's office to Cheney and those guys. He was dishonest with the American people. He lied to us over and over and over again. I mean, the guy just didn't have any character as far as I was concerned. None.
Okay, that's fairly clear in Jack Cafferty style. And now, finally, I got to ask you, how do you get along with Wolf Blitzer? Do you guys
Great.
Do you guys go out for drinks afterwards? Or anything?
He's in Washington and I'm in New York. That would be a little tough.
Okay,
but no, I'm Wolf's man Jack.
Okay, because sometimes he doesn't seem to quite get what you're saying. Am I?
That's all right. Neither do a lot of people. There are days I don't even understand it.
All right. So, but you recognize that.
Yeah, it's fine. I'm not running a popularity contest. I don't care if everybody gets it or not. When CNN gets tired of listening to me, they'll say, "Here's your retirement money. Get out."
Well, you are refreshingly honest, and that's why we like you. Jack Cafferty, his book on the Bush administration was "It's Getting Ugly Out There," and his new book is "Now or Never: Getting down to the business of saving our American dream." Thank you so much for joining us on the Young Turks.
Well, thanks for having me on. I enjoyed this.